In 1997, Radiohead released OK Computer, an album that redefined the boundaries of rock music and spoke of the anxieties of a rapidly changing world, one dominated by technology. Does that sound familiar? This is the story of an album that saw the future before the rest of us did. Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm here to talk to you about one of the most important rock albums of all time, OK Computer. Radiohead have done some smashing albums, but none of them, in my opinion, can hold a tea-light to their third album, 1997 masterpiece, OK Computer. Let's dive in. So the early to mid-90s belonged to Britpop. Bands like Oasis and Blur battled for the hearts of the UK. All anyone cared about was Roll With It versus Country House. Meanwhile, Creep had catapulted Radiohead into an uncomfortable spotlight. Tom York, the band's enigmatic frontman, felt increasingly disconnected from the industry and modern life in general. Their second album, The Bends, cemented their place as innovators and out there while sticking to the typical rock music sound of the era. By the mid-1990s, Radiohead had grown bored of the formulaic approach dominating popular music. York had spoken about his growing dread of routine and constant travel all the time, calling the relentless cycle a slow unravelling of self. Despite the success of The Bends, Radiohead's ambitions went far beyond stadium rock anthems. They were reaching for something timeless, something that had never been done before. After the success of The Bends in 1995, Radiohead officially stepped into the spotlight as one of Britain's most celebrated bands. They were even nominated at the Brit Awards, the UK's premier pop award show. But the truth was, they weren't happy. While the Bends had polished up their early grunge and post-punk sound they'd tried to nail down with Pablo Honey, Tom York and the rest of the band felt that they'd pushed that style as far as it could go. Instead of basking in their success from the Bends, they became restless. They were eager to move away from the traditional guitar-driven rock sound that was making them famous, and the same sound that was dominating the charts too. Tom York was tired of the expectations that came with stardom. Touring had drained him and the endless press cycles felt suffocating. On top of all this, he became increasingly preoccupied and concerned with how technology, consumerism and modern life could alienate people. Being out on tour and seeing the world, he'd seen it all too much. And that is the tension that's brewing in the DNA of OK Computer. It's like they were using the album as a way to process all of it, as a way to step back and dissect what was happening to them and the world. So the actual process of making OK Computer was a deliberate departure from anything that they'd done before. Instead of recording in a standard studio, they started sessions in Canned Applause, which was a converted shed near Didcot that gave them the freedom to experiment without time constraints. But the real magic happened when they moved into St Catherine's Court, which was a 15th century mansion owned by actress Jane Seymour. The house itself felt like something out of a gothic novel. It was grand, it was isolated and eerie. The band would stay up until the early hours, recording something in different rooms and letting the acoustics of the space sort of seep into the music. A legend has it that strange events occurred during the recording. Things like flickering lights, odd sounds in the halls. While the band just brushed it off, the isolation added to the disturbing tone of their work. They weren't just writing an album, they were actually trying to create an experience. The choice to work there gave them the room to breathe creatively. It also removed the sterile pressure of a studio environment, replacing it with something much more organic and moody. Producer Nigel Godrich, who was quickly becoming Radiohead's sixth member, played a massive role in this process, encouraging the band to lean into the strange echoes, the imperfections, the rawness of the space. But why did OK Computer feel like such a shift? So compared to the Bends, OK Computer was on a completely different wavelength. While the Bends had powerful rock anthems and heartfelt introspection, OK Computer traded those big emotional crescendos for unsettling soundscapes, layered effects and cryptic storytelling. The band drew inspiration from unlikely places, including electronic music by Aphex Twin and the sound experiments of Brian Eno. They didn't want to make rock songs anymore. They wanted to create something cinematic, something that felt like stepping into another world. And a lot of that atmosphere came down to the production. Songs weren't recorded and pieced together in a clean, methodical way. Instead, the tracks often built themselves in a surprising way, thanks to the mansion's natural reverb, creaky floors, and distant hums. Nigel Godrich pushed the band to think beyond traditional song structures. You can hear that in how the tracks flow. Sometimes they're ominous, sometimes they're serene, they're always unpredictable though. So I just want to talk to you about some of the songs in more detail, give a few brief descriptions about each one, and try and understand what Tom is actually trying to say. So let's start off with the first track, Airbag. The opening track feels like a real jolt to the system. The lyrics are inspired by a real car accident that Tom actually survived, which left him shaken but unharmed. But instead of wallowing in fear, he turned the experience into something hopeful, a weird science fiction take on being reborn and the adrenaline rush that comes from surviving a near-death accident. An airbag saved his life. Technology saved his life, despite technology, the German car, being the same thing that almost killed him. The song's jagged loops and distorted beats were influenced by York's love of DJ Shadow's Introducing, which redefined what sampling could actually be. Paranoid Android, probably my favourite song on the album, most likely. So what started as a drunken jam session turned into one of Radiohead's most ambitious epics. It was inspired by Happiness is a Warm Gun and Bohemian Rhapsody. Band stitched together several different sections into a 6-minute odyssey that's part fever dream and part satire. York's lyrics, which detail greed, paranoia, Gucci little piggies, death by firing squad and self-destruction, were inspired by an unsettling night at an LA bar where he witnessed wealthy patrons behaving like entitled maniacs. The song's wild shifts in tempo and tone give it chaotic brilliance. So Subterranean Homesick Alien, not to be confused by Bob Dylan's Subterranean Homesick Blues, this track is just pure escapism. York wrote it while reflecting on his time at boarding school where he often felt like an outsider. He imagined a world where aliens might whisk him away from the dreariness of daily life. The shimmering guitar work was inspired by Miles Davis's Bitches Brew. It makes you feel like you're floating in zero gravity. Exit music for a film. So it was originally written for Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. The song sounds like a deathbed whisper. Probably my only other track that could go against Paranoid Android. It's absolutely epic. York wrote it after imagining what it'd be like if the doomed lovers could actually escape before their tragic fate. It's stripped down to a little bit more than York's haunting voice and acoustic guitar. It's intimate but still devastating. Let down. So touring life can feel like being stuck in endless cycles of planes, buses and hotel rooms. So Let Down captures that crushing monotony. The sense of being transported but still being emotionally numb. The cascading guitars, overlapping vocals create a dreamy, weightless effect that contrasts with the song's overall melancholy. Karma Police, probably one of their most well-known songs. So this track is often described as a passive-aggressive anthem, with Tom York jokingly call it a slogan for anyone who's ever wanted to put someone in their place. Its dark humour is contrasted by ghostly piano melody that turns more sinister as the song progresses. There's something both judgmental and resigned about it, as if York is delivering the punishment and also accepting his own fate. Fitter and Happier, definitely the weirdest song on the album. The track is entirely narrated by a text-to-speech voice listing all the right ways to live. Eat better, work out, smile more, but instead of sounding empowering, it's bleak and robotic. Commentary on how modern life can strip away humanity in favour of just normal, shallow routines. Climbing Up the Walls is one of the most unsettling songs that Radiohead has ever made, and that's saying something. York drew from his experience working in psychiatric hospitals, as well as his own battles with anxiety. The claustrophobic arrangement layers, eerie strings and distorted effects, making it sound like something crawling inside your brain. No surprises, again another really well-known song by Radiohead that often is misconstrued. Don't let the lullaby-like melody fool you. It is still one of the darkest tracks on the album. Tom York has described it as a song about someone who's just had enough. It's quiet resignation, paired with soft bells and acoustic strumming, feels like they're watching someone force a smile while they quietly fall apart. Lucky was originally recorded for the Help album. This song was inspired by the strange clarity that comes after a brush with death. It's almost got a spiritual serenity in its slow build, as if the song is trying to capture what it feels like trying to survive something you thought would destroy you. And the closing track, The Tourist, is a warning wrapped in a lullaby. Written by Johnny Greenwood this time, it reflects his frustration with people rushing through life without ever slowing down. It's deliberate and unhurried, reminding the listener to stop and breathe amid the chaos. So when OK Computer was released in 1997, it was immediately hailed as a masterpiece, but not because it fit into any established trend. In fact, it broke almost every rule. Radiohead's record label feared OK Computer would alienate fans and tank commercially. While Britpop was still clinging to its swagger and simplicity, remember, this is the same year that Be Here Now was released. OK Computer was cryptic, introspective, and experimental. It wasn't an easy album to digest, but that's exactly why it resonated with so many people. The band's legendary Glastonbury set in 1997 became a defining moment. Despite technical malfunctions, they delivered an unforgettable performance, cementing their reputation as one of the greatest live acts of the era. York later recalled feeling like he was on the verge of collapse, but the sea of fans singing every single word became their salvation. At its core, OK Computer is about alienation in a rapidly modernising world. Captured the unease of entering the digital age, full of promise but also full of new anxieties. The themes of disconnection, monotony and existential dread felt eerily prophetic as technology has completely transformed our everyday lives. It's unimaginable how different we live today in 2025 compared to 1997, and yet Tom York saw it was coming and he had to tell us. Radiohead's willingness to take risks not only redefined their career but also reshaped the future of alternative music. Since its release, OK Computer has remained a touchstone for musicians and listeners alike. Countless artists have cited OK Computer as a life-changing album. Even decades later, its haunting atmosphere and existential questions remain just as powerful as ever. It's not just an album, it's an experience. It leaves you questioning everything but also feeling understood at the same time. It managed to seamlessly capture the unease of the late 20th century and somehow feel even more relevant today than it did back then. In a world dominated by screens, algorithms and isolation, the warnings embedded in Radiohead's masterpiece are just prophetic. They didn't just predict the future, they actually gave it a soundtrack. In 1997, Radiohead asked us to slow down, to question everything, and to resist the pull of a world speeding towards oblivion. The message of OK Computer lingers still to this day. Don't let the machines win. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. Hope you've enjoyed this one on Radiohead. I love one of my all-time favourite bands. I'd love to tackle more of their albums in the next coming videos. As always, like and subscribe down below. Thanks very much for watching and have a great day.